One of the great things about being on BookTube is all the remarkable, brilliant people that you meet and you come in contact with and you develop relationships with, whether they're channel makers or whether they're just commenters. It is absolutely the greatest thing about BookTube. And one of the most brilliant people on BookTube is Jack the Rambling Raconteur, who tagged me to do this tag. So this is the Historathon book tag Ancient Cultures, which Jack created. It's his original tag, and it's a part of the Historathon read-along, I think, that's going on all year. So it has several prompts, and I have them here on my phone, so I'm going to go read through the prompts and answer the questions, as you do when you do a tag. So prompt number 1, the Romans. Oh, so I should probably say that all these prompts are some way connected to an ancient culture. So prompt number 1, the Romans. What books, writers, genres are your bread and circuses? So by bread and circuses, he just means, you know, genre of books or a writer whose works you can just really lose yourself in and become completely immersed in. And it's this kind of almost like, you know, for me, it's almost like a resetting, cathartic would be the wrong word, but kind of, you know, mind cleansing exercise. It's not that the books are without value, it's just that they're things that I just really enjoy, and for me, that would be detective fiction. And I've read quite a bit of detective fiction, and there's so much out there that I probably will never come to the end. But some of my favorite authors of detective fiction: Chester Himes with his Harlem Detective series, Ian Rankin with his Inspector Rebus novels, Georges Simenon with the Maigret novels, which are just great. I did a whole video about P.D. James, Where Not to Start. P.D. James and Commander Dalgleish are great. I consider Elmore Leonard's books, even though some of them are thrillers and not necessarily detective stories, I put him in that category as well. And just so many other books and authors I want to read. So that would definitely be, you know, my bread and circuses kind of immerse yourself, distract yourself, get lost in type of reading. Prompt number 2. The Sumerians. What is a work you read many years ago but still appreciate? I'm going to say the short stories of Edgar Allan Poe. Poe is probably the first author who, even way back in high school, I kind of got into. I know I wrote my junior research paper in my junior English class about Poe. By the way, my mother was my teacher. That was awkward. About Poe, and I still really like Poe's work in his short stories. Prompt number 3, the Shang. What is your favorite non-example to pillory? So, you know, what is the author or book that I consider to be a bad example or that I like to make fun of? You know, I think the most obvious answer here to anybody who watched my channel would be Thomas Hardy. And I want to say up front, I'm not saying that Thomas Hardy is not an excellent, great novelist. I'm just saying I don't like him. I don't like the misery that he seems to wallow in. I don't like the gloom that seems to accompany most of his novels, even though I did like Far From the Madding Crowd. And, you know, something about Hardy, I believe, considering himself to be a poet and not a novelist, has always rubbed me the wrong way. I mean, I always want to say to Hardy, you know, who was dead long before I was born, I always want to say to Hardy, you know, why should I take your novels seriously and think they're great if you thought your poetry was really where you were the greatest? Anyway, that may be wrong, and it may be Hardy never even said that, but I'm holding against Hardy anyway. By the way, lately, if you've been watching my channel, you know that I've been kind of taking my shots at Cormac McCarthy. Prompt number 4, early Basketmaker. Name an early work that points the way to later monuments. So in this one, we're supposed to, I think, pick out an early work by an author and kind of talk about how it leads to, or kind of signal that there'll be greatness later on. One of my favorite authors, Louise Erdrich, Love Medicine, which is not necessarily her first published work, but I think Love Medicine definitely, in part because it's the first in a series of books connected to that book called the Love Medicine Cycle, I believe. Love Medicine is a really great book. Not as great as some of her later books in my personal opinion, but it definitely signals her unique ability to blend the worlds of the reservation, Native American reservations, with the, you know, worlds of America outside the reservation, with traditions and intrusions, and it's just, you know, it has all the things in it that I think you find later in Louise Erdrich's books. maybe not quite as well developed, maybe not quite as sharp as they'll be in other books, but definitely there. Prompt number 5. The Babylonians. What book did you expect to be impenetrable but found quite easy to sink into? And I know Jack mentioned this is a book that he actually likes to pillory, but for me that book was Anna Karenina. And if you know anything about me or my channel, you know that me and Russian writers do not get along. All those damn names. I know it's petty, but that's just the way it is. And why do the books have to be so long? Anyway, so I did read Anna Karenina. I thought I would read Anna Karenina and get into Tolstoy and go on and read War and Peace, which you know my feelings about again if you've seen some of my videos. And, you know, so I picked it up. I thought it would be dense and difficult to read and slow and boring and all those names. And I immediately just really loved it. Even with all the stuff about, you know, farming, etc. I loved it. I got into it. I read it relatively quickly. And then in a weird way, I thought to myself, well, if I loved Anna Karenina this much, the longer War and Peace might just be a disappointment. But anyway, Anna Karenina would be that book. By the way, I don't know if you know, if you've watched my channel, you know I don't really make a lot of sense. That my points of view are oftentimes random and based on personal prejudices and weird ideas I have, and this would definitely be an example of that. Prompt number 6, the Persians. How do you organize your bookshelves? Okay, so fiction is organized alphabetical by author. It's also broken down into genre. So most of my books I just consider to be general fiction. Some people would, you know, maybe separate out literary fiction from that. I have short stories on the bottom. I have my fantasy novels on the bottom right. I have my detective novels kind of all crammed into one box because I'm running out of book space. And then on the shelves behind me there, that's where I have my nonfiction. At the top, and the books I have the most of would be American history, and they are actually organized chronologically, both American history and biography I have mixed together. And then I have sections for, you know, world history. I have what we in America call world history. I have sections for classical history. There's an arts section, there's a science section. And in those I go back to, in any kind of history section, I organize them chronologically. And not by author. But that's basically it, and I just mentioned to you that don't oftentimes make sense. Question 7, Ishango bone of Middle Stone Age Central Africa. And you'll have to go watch Jack's video, which I will link down below if you don't know what that is. It was really interesting, as Jack always is. The prompt says, how does the length of a work affect your reading experience? Increasingly, I have a dread of picking up long books, books that are over 500 pages, even sometimes books that approach 500 pages. Even though I oftentimes enjoy books of that length, and you know, I think I get something out of them. They may be great books. I still find myself longing for the end of those books, and you know, I think this actually makes sense. Conversely, then, I find myself turning towards shorter books and appreciating the ability of a short work like Claire Keegan's Small Things Like These, or Jessica Al's Cold Enough for Snow, and the ability of those books to really create a complete world story, characters, and communicate something to you in short form, oftentimes in very simple language. I have a real appreciation for that. And so, yeah, I definitely think the length of a book definitely affects my eagerness to pick it up, and on some levels my ability to enjoy it. Prompt number 8, the Huns. How do you read packed books while traveling? So before I got a Kindle, I just would take 1 or 2 paperbacks. I really early on realized that there was no real reason to carry a whole lot of books. I always overestimate how much I can read while I'm on vacation. On vacation makes me tired. I go to sleep. I don't read before I go to sleep. It fills up the day. And so I now usually just take 1 or 2 paperback books. Usually something, you know, along the lines of the Bread and Circuses books that I know I'm going to enjoy reading when I can, but I don't have to like devote a whole lot of concentration to for long periods of time, perhaps. And I take those. Now that I have my Kindle, you know, all the books on my Kindle are available and open, and I can pack it quite easily. Prompt number 9, the Aurignacian Culture. What are your favorite pop culture references to ancient culture. Well, there's only one, which any man of my generation who was a young man in the 80s would say, and that is the Bengal song "Walk Like an Egyptian," for obvious reasons, which I am showing here. Then prompt 10 is the Minoans established trade routes and tagged some booktubers. I'm only going to tag 3 booktubers specifically, but if this tag sounds like something you want to do, please let me encourage you to do it. I'm going to tag Ursula from Ursula's Odds and Ends. I'm going to tag Erica from the channel Passage of Time. By the way, both of those channels are really underappreciated. Please go check them out. And Tom from LA Books, who has a real understanding, appreciation for, and ability to communicate his appreciation of the classics. I want to tag Tom LA Books as well. Anyway, there you go. There is the, let's see, Historathon book tag, Ancient Cultures. Thanks, Jack, for tagging me. I'll leave a link to Jack's original video down below and to the channels that I tagged. Please go check all of those out. And I look forward to your comments in the comment section below. And as always, thank you for watching.